I'm Farah Duro, and you're listening to the PCOS Revolution Podcast. Well, hello, and welcome back to the PCOS Revolution Podcast. I'm here today with Dr. Cade Copeland. He's a chiropractor and a functional medicine practitioner from Naples, Florida, and he's been practicing for over 10 years and graduated from NWHSU in 2009, and he's dedicated his life to working with families and women to address health issues through a multidisciplinary approach to wellness. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, Dr. Cade's philosophy is to build upon what's right. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Cade.
Thank you, Dr. Duro. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. And I'm really excited about this episode today because it just happened to be that I was really into some research I was doing about CBD oil online for PCOS, and some new research has come out recently. And I actually came across your website, and you're not that far from our clinic as well. So I'd really love to hear some of your answers that we have today to some questions about how CBD can help with balancing hormones and help with anxiety and weight loss and all kinds of things. So I'm glad to have you here. Now, can we just start by asking you a question about how you got into using CBD in your practice?
Well, thanks again for having me. I'm excited about this too. Such a big topic to talk about. And I know that we're going to be all over the map here today, but I've been using CBD for maybe 3 years now in practice. And the way it came about was I always try to get as many tools as I can to help our patients. And whether that's exercise, whether that's detox, chiropractic, massage, the list really just continues to grow. And it's nice to have a diverse toolbox, I think, because there isn't necessarily one thing that works for everybody. And that is a perfect segue into CBD. Mm-hmm. CBD, the dosing, the frequency doesn't work for everybody. You've got to be flexible. And we had a couple patients bring it to my attention, and I initially brushed it off. And I don't know if that's what you did, Dr. Duro, but I initially brushed it off, and I thought that it was kind of too good to be true. And what I had previously known about the plant didn't make sense that there'd be any healthful benefits. But it was, I think, the third patient that brought it to my attention. And I went to my favorite website, which is greenmedinfo.com, run by Sayer G, which has literally, I think right now the count is up to 680 peer-reviewed medical research articles about cannabis, hemp, and the collective whole. And I was blown away. And everything changed from there. And it's been on my list and my recommendation for everybody's medicine cabinet ever since.
Very nice. And can you tell us a few of the ways you use it now in your practice?
I think that's a great question. I think we're all, as practitioners, limited by our creativity. And we've used it for pregnant mommies. We've used it for diaper creams for babies. We use it as part of our concussion protocol. We've used it for PCOS, which we're going to talk about. My wife, which is a picture of her sitting right behind me with our oldest, was diagnosed with Crohn's disease after the birth of our oldest, who just turned 6 this past week. And we used it as an integral part at bringing her gut inflammation and gut pain down. Anxiety, depression, the list is endless.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. It's a natural anti-inflammatory, and I have read the research about using it after concussion and how it can actually protect the brain. It has some neuroprotective benefits. So important. And so you mentioned pregnancy, because that's been one of those things. We do treat a lot of pregnant women, and there is a debate about whether or not it's safe during pregnancy and breastfeeding. So what is your take on that?
Oh, it's such a hard topic here too. So at the end of the day, all I can give is my professional opinion. And because there is a huge lack of research out there for obvious reasons, because that is such a protected and important population, I can just give my professional opinion. And at the end of the day, this is a plant. We got to remember that we need to treat this different than a medication and different than a synthetic drug. Every single person on this planet is hardwired to have this endocannabinoid system inside that interacts with this plant, whether it's THC, whether it's CBD, or so many of the other hundreds of cannabinoids within the plant. And when we look at the safety, we've been using it again for all of recorded human history. So endocannabinoids, our body makes them. They're found in breast milk. They're found in every system in the body. So as far as a safety record, I think there isn't too many things that are as safe as that. But if we're just putting a tunnel vision on as far as, peer-reviewed medical research, I don't think we're going to get too far with that yet.
Right. It's hard to do clinical trials on pregnant women, as we know. And as far as you mentioned the endocannabinoid system, what is that exactly? Can you explain that in terms
Awesome.
that we can understand.
We're starting right at the beginning. I love it.
Yes.
So every person on this planet, no matter their age, no matter their health, how healthy or how sick they are, we all have receptors for the plant. And we also actually make cannabinoids internally, which is the same compound within our body. And those are called endocannabinoids. And then, of course, from a plant like hemp or cannabis or cacao, black truffle, maca, all of those things have compounds called phytocannabinoids. And those two compounds, whether we get them from food or we make them inside our body, react with these receptors collectively called the endocannabinoid system. And those receptors are found in every other system in the body, from the neurological, the muscular, the cardiovascular, the skeletal system, digestive system. And what we found is, as a whole, what those receptors and those compounds actually do is help our body actually adapt to stress and find balance and homeostasis. So if we're too high and we have an overreaction, if we're too low and have an underreaction, it helps the body, again, find that balance, find that homeostasis.
Interesting. So it's our body's own adaptogen.
I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's the ultimate, it's the ultimate adaptogen.
And how come we haven't heard much about the system before now?
Doc, that's a loaded question. That's such a hard one to answer. I think we're in the past couple of years, of course, it is becoming almost something that you can't not hear about, right? Or it's everywhere. But back in 1937, actually, I'll rewind that for a second. One of my favorite ways to answer that question is by recommending people watch the documentary called The Sacred Plant. And that's a free documentary that's out there. And it's a docu-series. So I think there's 6 or 7 or 8 episodes. And the first episode is actually dedicated to how we've used this plant culturally and ancestrally for thousands of years. But that changed in 1937 with the introduction of the Marijuana Tax Act. And again, it was in almost every physician's, repertoire of tools and medicines to help people get well, in even medical doctors. But in 1937, that changed and that got stripped out of, again, from medicine. And that's when it got to Schedule 1 and it was out of circulation. So since then, our bodies have actually really struggled. There's a greater toll on our endocannabinoid system to make more of our own because we're not getting the plant-based sources ourselves.
Interesting. Yeah. And I know that in Chinese medicine, the plant has been used for thousands of years. And in fact, in our herbal pharmacy, we had something called maziren, which is the sterilized seeds from the hemp plant. And we had them in a big jar in our herbal pharmacy. And sometimes people would walk in and go, "What is that?" And they'd smell the box of burning. And they're like, "What are you guys doing here?" But we're like, look, we use it for constipation. We use it for so many things. And when I was over there, the plants are just growing wild everywhere. And it's just part of the pharmacopoeia. But definitely the laws are changing across the country. And I feel like this system should be taught more in medical school too. I don't think I ever heard about it in pre-med or biology or any of that. So maybe things are changing and we're recognizing there's different benefits to looking at this. And definitely with reproductive medicine, they sometimes will take research from THC, which is not the same as CBD. Could you explain the difference with that?
Well, before I do, I think what you just said was a great point, and I love bringing that up with every doctor that we talk to about the subject. Is this is something that we didn't learn in medical school, whether it's chiropractic school or medicine school, pharmacology. I mean, it's not taught in colleges, and that's an interesting thought, especially when some of the research is showing us that this endocannabinoid receptor, the density, even just within the brain, the receptors are more dense than what we have for dopamine or serotonin. And neurotransmitters are something that's taught at such a basic level. Why is this missing from the literature? It's such a big topic. So I'm hopeful that will change. And obviously, as the research continues to show the positive impact that this plant can have. So you were talking about the difference between THC and CBD, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. So THC is the fun one. That's the one that is responsible for the psychoactive components, the high. And THC typically with both CB1 and CB2 receptors, which are the two famous receptors within the endocannabinoid system. And what happens when THC binds, CB1, it also binds at the same spot that our endocannabinoid anandamide binds with. And anandamide is named for bliss. That's the one that our body actually makes and gives us that blissful feeling. And hopefully every listener that's here has a chance to experience that bliss, because it is an amazing feeling when our body actually feels that, right? But THC responsible for that heightened high. Why it's there and why we're high is because the enzyme that actually breaks down anandamide, it doesn't break down THC as quickly. And so that's why that long, feeling again of high happens when we introduce THC. Now, on the flip side, CBD, these are the two most common ones that are talked about of the cannabinoids that are found in the hemp and the cannabis plant. CBD does not give you a high. CBD does not bind to either one of those receptors, but it does interact with those receptors, and we're still learning how it does. CBD actually helps our body produce more anandamide naturally, and it also actually slows the breakdown of anandamide. So that also does give us some of that blissful feeling, but nowhere near as much as, again, what that psychoactive component THC does.
Okay, that's great because when I'm reading about, we do ask our patients if they're taking medicinal marijuana or any substances when they're trying to conceive, because there is some research about THC blocking the release of LH, which we know is, responsible for ovulation. But the studies have really mentioned more THC than CBD. So I always have that question. We don't even recommend taking Tylenol sometimes when you're trying to conceive in that week of ovulation, because it could end up, having some detrimental effects. But definitely THC has been shown to do that. So as far as how they're different, that's where I'm bringing you on a lot of questions, I know, because I have these questions when I read this, and it's important to know the distinction, because I think that the research from THC is not going to be exactly the same as CBD. So
I think, to be honest with you, I have so many of these questions too, and I think sometimes it's okay to say we're still learning, right? And I want to proudly make sure that I'm saying that here too. A lot of the research out there will use an isolate of CBD or an isolate of THC, where we don't really find that in nature. And, of course, when we're seeing some things with THC being, bad for kids and developmental things, again, that's usually using THC as an isolate away from the rest of the plant. And what we find is that Mother Nature knows best, that there is a balance and a ratio between different breeds of THC and CBD. And what's wild is when we completely strip out THC, CBD is still great. But when we add in a little bit of THC, now nobody knows the exact amount when we start talking about this, right? THC actually heightens the medical benefit of CBD. So we don't want just a strict isolate of CBD. Even though it's still good, it's better when we add in a little bit of that THC, like what it's found in Mother Nature. And getting back to that initial question of how THC has, some research can show that it will influence LH. We don't know. Maybe I guess I haven't read that study. Does it talk about exactly how much, and for the, maybe it's based upon weight, or maybe it's based upon age? I would love to know some of those specifics, but I feel like we're still learning a lot of those things, correct?
Definitely, yeah, because it's a double-edged sword where, sometimes it is beneficial. So that's, even the study said, we're not really clear on a lot of these things yet. We're just beginning. So, and I think I can see this on down the road, developing, more specific targeted even drugs or formulas that are going to be using these aspects, of helping with certain things. So I think there's definitely, it's exciting because there's a lot of research out there. And, just getting back to reproductive issues, I think that, with PCOS, there's also the issue of weight. And that same article actually was saying that CBD can help utilize the brown fat more, I guess. So there's some sort of help with weight in that issue, but THC actually can backfire and cause weight gain. So there it is again, so that paragraph. So I think if you can maybe elaborate on how, if you know of any benefit to CBD for weight loss and how you've used that.
So another great question. So much of the things that I typically talk about with CBD include inflammation as an antioxidant, right? Neuroregeneration and neuroprotection. I love all of those things. And of course, it's got its pain-based analgesic benefits there. But there is a lot of research, and I'm going to just encourage everybody to go out to that website, greenmedinfo.com, to look through some of that research that's out there and some of the topics. But there is some research showing how it, for insulin and for diabetes, amazing research coming out about that and helping to reduce receptor burnout and increase receptor sensitivity. And of course, when we use hemp seed oil, we're not talking about the extract with CBD from the aerial parts like the flowers, but the actual seeds. Now, the seed, there's a lot of research talking about the benefits of just the good fat structure that's in there, and doing the same thing, improving the receptor sensitivity for patients that are dealing with insulin resistance.
Very neat. So if you're searching for hemp oil versus CBD oil, what's the difference there? It can be confusing. A lot of people walk in, they're like, I don't even know what I'm looking for. There's the vape shop down the street that says they have CBD. And then there's, what about quality control and all of this sort of thing? So
Oh, it's so tough. And this is actually why we created Rooted Apothecary, the company that I own, is because there is so much frustration. There is so much shady dealings, for lack of a better word, in this industry right now. And so maybe we can go through step by step and try to give, if you are in the market to look for products, here's the gold standard and here's the things to shy away from. So a couple definitions first. Hemp oil doesn't necessarily mean that we're actually getting cannabinoids. So hemp oil typically means that it's hemp seed oil. And that is, if you've ever had hemp seeds from, the local grocery store or seen the hemp seeds, they're usually the shelled hemp seeds, and those can be sprinkled on like granola. Those have amazing healthful benefits because of the good fats that's in those. But when we talk about hemp oil, the hemp oil is typically extracted or from the pressed seeds. And in our tinctures, we use hemp oil as the carrier oil. When we go a step further, hemp extract is usually what we're talking about with the CBD. All right. And that means that we've extracted the cannabinoids from the aerial parts of the plant. And maybe I should clarify that. That's how we do that at our company. The aerial parts of the plant, the flower and the leaves, those have the highest concentrations of CBD. Again, the beneficial parts of the plant. There is industrial CBD, which means that we're using all of the plant, mushing it, crunching it all together to create an extract. So that includes the stalks, the stems, the seeds, everything. So the aerial parts is what we're looking for. And again, that would mean that we call that a hemp extract. So a little bit more, there's two more things to talk about with a hemp extract. There's something called a full spectrum, and then there's something called an isolate. And a full spectrum means that we are using as much of the hemp extract as we can. And that includes all of the cannabinoids. The ones that we talked about so far are CBD and THC, but there's CBG, there's CBN, there's about 113, I think, as of right now, different cannabinoids. And we're still researching and we're still learning about the healthful benefits that those have. And when we use a full spectrum, we're getting all of those things. We're also getting flavonoids, we're getting antioxidants, we're getting terpenes. Terpenes, we could also call that essential oils. That's what we give the plant the color and the aroma and the flavor. And lastly, we have the isolate. So it's taking, again, the isolate is different than full spectrum, where we're taking just what we want from that plant. We're getting rid of everything else and we're just taking CBD out. So there's no THC in there, there's no flavonoids, there's no essential oil or terpenes in there, there's nothing else, just the CBD. Now, we were talking about drug testing, which I'm sure we're going to jump into, and that would probably be great for an isolate, but we're also losing all of the other medical benefits that's included in Mother Nature from that plant.
Okay, so somebody would do an isolate, aside from the drug testing, aspect of it, what would be the reason that they would seek the isolate?
Because it's cheap. Okay. It's very, very cheap. So when you're seeing prices that are sometimes too good to be true on CBD out there, a lot of times it's because it's an isolate. An isolate is cheaper to store. It's got a longer shelf life. Now, the part that doesn't quite make sense to me is there's extra manufacturing and processing to get an isolate. So at the end of the day, I don't know why it's cheaper, other than it has a bigger shelf life. It's lighter. It's easier to send out. It's easier to mix into things. But at the end of the day, the gold standard, what we're looking for is making sure that it's a full spectrum, and our body responds and our receptors are best with a full spectrum.
Very neat. So you have your own farm then, and you developed your own products for your patients, and then for everyone out there that's looking for a very high quality, good quality controlled product. So just tell us a little bit about what you developed and what you're using.
As you're saying that, I've got a big smile on my face over here. And to better answer that question, my fingernails do not have any dirt underneath them. I wish I could say that I was a farmer, but I'm a practitioner in Naples, Florida. We work with some very hardworking and honest farmers out in Colorado. So our product, and we've got a contract directly with them. Our product is grown here in the United States. It's organically grown, and we third-party test all of everything that we have, from our tinctures to our topicals to our essential oil blends, which I'm sure we're going to talk about here in a second too. And what we are really, really trying to do is make sure that we are setting the bar very high for the gold standard. Again, everything is organic, everything's full spectrum. There is not any fragrances, there's not any preservatives, there's not any colorings, anything synthetic in any of our blends. And we're very transparent with sharing everything that we can with everybody that's looking into it. I was going to say patients. I don't know if you heard me say that.
Right. I mean, so is there a governing body for the industry, or like not FDA, they don't regulate supplements, I guess, but what is the, I guess, like, what is the regulating body, I guess, or is there regulation with CBD oil? So
it's the Wild West. Really, really good question. And that's why there are so many companies out there going after the gold rush and just getting something out there that's confusing to people to make the quick buck. And that's why when you go onto, Amazon and you see hemp oil and, you see it for, $19 or 10, whatever the price is, it's too good to be true, because it actually is too good to be true. There's fillers and there's hemp oil. There isn't cannabinoids in there. It's not third-party tested. So at the end of the day, you really don't know what you're looking for. There was a report, I believe it was from, I can't remember if it was from the CDC or if it was from the FDA, but it did say that 70%, at least 70% of the hemp, products that are on the market do not have what they say in there. Whether that's cannabinoids, whether it's the amount of cannabinoids, whether it's whatever else is on the ingredients, 70% are not what they say.
wow, that's quite scary. Definitely. And is there something on the label that will say, like our herbs are GMP certified and that sort of thing? So is there anything on the label that can give you a clue as to whether it's a good product or not if you're shopping for CBD oil? Or
I think that's a really good question. Again, the gold standard, we're going to want to make sure that it's organically grown. We're going to want to make sure that it's a product in the United States. We're going to want to make sure that it's full spectrum. Those are the three big ones. If anybody's looking to experiment with this, those are the three big ones that we're going to want to look for. Just like with food, whether it's a bag of chips or bread or a salad dressing, we always want to make sure that we're reading ingredients. And so just like we do that with food, we're going to want to do that with, if you are going to experiment with CBD products, whether it's a tincture or a topical, look through those ingredients and make sure there isn't anything fishy in there. And sometimes that takes a little bit of patience. And if you don't know what's on there, sometimes it's better to just stay away and find a cleaner one. Sometimes you can go to the website EWG with a Skin Deep database and you can type in what those ingredients are and get a little bit more research on it. But there is really just, again, there's so many companies out there that are not doing things in a healthful way.
And I noticed some of the websites, the companies will actually put their batch results right on there too. So like that's something that would be helpful, I would think, if they're able to disclose that. Right.
Thank you for bringing that up. And I think I missed that one. Yeah. Make sure that the company is third-party testing, independent testing every single batch. And that is definitely something that we do with Rooted Apothecary. That was very, very important to us. I mean, if we're recommending it to our patients, if we're having our family and our friends use it, that's a lot of weight on our shoulders to make sure that we are, doing things the right way. And those results should be accurate. They should be up to date. So when you're clicking through the website, you're going to be able to see what that batch is. And there should either be a barcode or on the box, there should be a link to the most up-to-date that you can match with your bottle.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah. So there's so many questions about this, because the question I guess we get a lot is, how much should I take of this stuff? Like what's the dose? And it's like, I don't even know, because people bring in other products that they purchase on Amazon and that sort of thing. And I'm like, I can't really tell you that, because I don't even know if it's real, what you're taking, first of all. And I don't know how concentrated it is. And the bottle might tell you a dropper fill, but I mean, how do we know the milligrams and all of that? So I guess that's another tricky area where it's not an exact science. And, so what sort of dosing, I guess, recommendations would you recommend for someone who's just getting started, I guess, with researching and trying to take a CBD oil blend?
Super great questions, Doc. I love it. You're really teeing this up today, which is a lot of fun. So I should clarify first and foremost by starting to say that what we firmly stand for at Rooted Apothecary is that CBD is not the cure. CBD is not the answer. So manage your expectations going in, whether it's somebody with fertility issues or hormonal imbalances or gut problems or whatever, you fill in the blank. Even if you're healthy, manage your expectations going in. It is a part of a healthy lifestyle. If we are, taking CBD and then, running through the drive-through at McDonald's, I mean, how much of a difference are we really going to make at the end of the day? It's a part of the toolbox. So when we jump into dosing, we just actually posted up a really good talk with another doctor that's on our medical advisory board. And so that should be posted up on our website, which is rootedapoth.com. And I'm going to summarize that here in a second. But we also have a really nice infographic that talks about, it contrasts our body weight and it contrasts the severity of the symptom. So if a woman who's 110 pounds struggling with anxiety, that's going to be a very different dose than a man who's, 250 pounds with low back pain and who's in, 10 out of 10 pain. So there's a really nice infographic that people can check out at our website that kind of walks you through on where to start. So before I go any further and ramble on, I think there's two different philosophies on how to dose with this plan. Number one, there's something called low and slow. And I think this is probably the best way to do it just because of some unanswered questions that I have. And low and slow means starting somewhere between 5 to 10 milligrams a day of CBD, right? And seeing how your body responds and reacts. And for most of us, we've never had a cannabis or a hemp product into our body. That means that our receptors are probably pretty slow. Our endocannabinoid system is probably pretty deficient. You should get a good jump start from 5 to 10 milligrams. And if you don't, over the next couple of days or a week, you can slowly add in some more, listen to your body for better or for worse, and you can modify your dosing from there. And again, I think for people with autoimmune or food sensitivities or just anything else, I think that's the best place to start.
That's good advice. And I would say that you would continue that, or it's my understanding there's a plateau that a lot of times is reached when someone is on a particular dose for an extended amount of time and they need to either just take a break or they increase or what. Have you seen that in your practice, or what have you known?
Doc, again, great questions because, all of these things are so individual to people, right? And so there's so much that we can talk about. Can I come back to that? I'm going to answer the opposite side of this. The opposite side of low and slow, of course, is giving yourself what we call a load dose, or trying to really give your body as much as you can in a short period of time to, again, give your body that jump start. I think for somebody with, chronic back pain or somebody who's in a really severe state, we start them at somewhere between like 30 to 50 or 75 milligrams. And what we'll do is dose up very high for 1, 2, 3 weeks until we get them to a good spot. And then we start coming down. No matter who, where you start, if it's low and slow or if you're using a low dose, at the end of the day, just like with every other supplement, it's really to not be dependent on CBD. It's to try to take as little as you can and still maintain the health goals that you're after. And, on the high end, there's been studies saying people have tested or, safely taken 1,500 milligrams a day.
Wow.
Without it said, I know I saw your eyebrows go up. That's pretty wild, isn't it? To think
a lot.
Not only that for the amount, but holy cow, in the checkbook, that's got to be pretty crazy. So again, it's encouraging to know that at the end of the day, this is just a concentrated form of food, and our body is going to be able to use and take what it wants and get rid of what it doesn't. But the questions, Doc, that I have are, well, if we're taking that much from an external source, what's happening to our endocannabinoid system? Are our own receptors, are those burning out? Are we creating less of our own endocannabinoids? What is the long-term, outcome of that? And we don't know those things.
Okay, so it's really a bridge. You could definitely incorporate this with treatments that you're getting from your practitioners or healthy eating, exercising, all those things, and just kind of incorporating that. It's the smallest therapeutic dose, I guess, is what you're saying, just because there's still ongoing research. And I think that's true for a lot of people. They can feel kind of sleepy a little bit. I would think if they're taking too much, it might be. I think my mother actually bought gummies one day from somewhere, and she called me up and said, "What is this? I slept for 11 hours." I said, "Mom, you're not supposed to take that much."
That's a good point. And, at the end of the day, we don't know exactly what happened there. But what's so cool about CBD is it helps get your body out of that stressful fight or flight state. And it does promote the parasympathetic aspects of all of our nerve systems. And we can actually get back into that resting, digesting, and healing state. And so, I'm sure she was probably deficient on sleep and probably pretty stressed out for a period of time, probably some, adrenal issues. Maybe I'm
definitely. No, definitely. You described her.
Oh my gosh. How amazing is that then, to go and get 11 hours of sleep and, shut that brain off from racing thoughts and, slow the heart rate down. And imagine what happened inside that we're not able to actually document unless we've got a heart rate variability test. That's one of my favorite things for, situations like this. But CBD can really help unlock the body's, get out of that fight or flight state.
So, okay, now you brought that up. How do you use that with CBD as far as the heart rate variability?
So right behind me, I've got a heart rate variability test. I am really encouraging patients to actually have one of them themselves. or that's probably the terrible grammar. I'm sorry I messed that up. It must be past my bedtime. But one of my favorite units out there right now is the Oura ring, Oura. And it's a ring that you can wear and you can actually live test your heart rate variability and see if your body's in that stressful state or if you're actually able to access that resting, digesting, and healing. And I think it's so smart to track because we are living, breathing human beings. And when we're driving down the road and there's a stressful traffic situation, our body accesses that stressful state. That's normal. But on the flip side of that, we should be able to come down and come out of that and get out of the stressful state. And many of us simply can't these days. We just get stuck in that stressful state. And long term, from adrenal issues to thyroid to hormonal to brain health to sleep, all of those things are impacted. And what's nice when we have that, whether it's an Oura ring or whatever else, when we track the heart rate variability, as we add in CBD or we change our nutrition or we add in some, different exercise routine, we can track our system live. What's working, what isn't working, so that we can narrow in our own personal healthcare routine.
So you can actually see it in real time as far as okay, so I'm thinking this would be kind of neat during an acupuncture treatment to see if they're actually going into that rest and digest mode, because sometimes it takes a few treatments. We've seen that with certain patients. They just can't seem to ease into it. And so you're saying CBD could also help with somebody whose mind is just, we call the hamster wheel brain, is just, it can't slow down and that sort of thing, that this would actually help them achieve that.
Got to crash that chatterbox. It's the chatterbox is just, it's unreal sometimes how powerful that can be. But, and again, for some people, it's a dose of CBD. For some people, it's an acupuncture session. For some people, it's way, way, way more than that. There's, their whole biography, the story of their life, of our life brings us to this point. Our relationships, our work, our food habits, all of these things bring us to this point. So it's important to have realistic expectations as we add or change things. And I think the best thing to track it is with that heart rate variability. Now, some of my concerns are it's a ring, and I think the battery lasts a week. So that's pretty awesome. But, there is some wireless signals, which, of course, can offset some of the good that we're doing. So take everything with a grain of salt. We always recommend that people look into it. But that is my current favorite tool to measure the actual helpful impact that we're using as we get creative in treatment options.
Very neat. And we'll definitely we'll list these links in our show notes too. And would the Apple Watch also work similarly, or is that working?
So I think that's a good question. And I'm not an Apple guy, which I say that hesitantly because I know I get in trouble sometimes for saying that, but I don't think it's as accurate as the Oura is specifically for heart rate variability. I know that Apple Watch is very accurate with heart rate, but I do think you have to have some other software and some algorithms to actually take the heart rate, measure the variability, and put it into something that is accurate to read.
Okay, interesting. So wonderful. So I know that we have talked about so many things, and everybody probably even has even more questions for you. But one thing I wanted to mention before we left is, I was looking actually at an article saying that a grandmother was stopped at an airport because she had CBD oil and from coming back from Disney or that sort of thing, and they arrested her. And so we want to also emphasize that it is legal, right, in all 50 states, but it's not legal to fly with apparently, or if you do get some CBD oil, you have to make sure that you're not flying with it. Is that right at this point?
All right. So I'm going to answer this the best way that I can. I'm confused too. I'm very confused right now too. That Disney article kind of shook me up, and I'm pretty upset about it because I think that's a pretty rough way to spend resources, is to, go after grandma who I believe was with her two grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And I think there's going to be some more coming out of that story on exactly what was happening. But again, CBD, from my understanding, CBD itself is legal. THC is not legal. And we have to make sure that THC, if it is in the product, which it is in all of ours, below 0.3%. And I don't know the exact specifics of the field tests, but I don't know if the field test can measure if it's from my understanding, I think it's an all or nothing with THC, that if there is, even if it's below 0.3% THC, that does test hot, which means that it's illegal in a field test with an officer. That I need to know some more specifics on that, but I am very confused right now too. Even though the Farm Bill was signed by President Trump and it has declassified hemp, and which CBD is derived from hemp and not cannabis, which is higher in THC, for that to be legal in all 50 states, it's very interesting.
It's
And
very
why?
confusing. It really is. Yeah. So I just tell my patients, please don't fly with this. You can have this, but just in case, I don't want you to get arrested.
We've
So
had people fly with it and have no problems. I was just in Tahoe and I flew with it and there was no issues. And we've had lots of patients fly with it. And ours says hemp extract right on the front cover, making sure that whoever's looking at it knows that the hemp extract means that it's a full spectrum. Full spectrum CBD doesn't make sense. CBD is just a component. It's got to be full hemp extract. And our patients, I have not heard a single horror story from within our office or any of our partners. But why, if they were going to go after somebody, why not go after my office, which has thousands of dollars of CBD right up front, or the health food store down the road? Why single out this grandmother? I'm very confused.
yes, I think it was lack of education, it looked like, and what is it? I don't know. There's so many questions there, but I would definitely, I guess until things become more concrete, just be careful flying, definitely. And so, as far as getting back to anxiety and the benefits that can be, with CBD for someone who has anxiety, I'm asking this specifically because we have someone who is 12 years old and with PCOS who has tremendous anxiety and who has actually successfully gotten off her medications and utilized CBD. And, I think this is really important because I've been seeing this more and more where patients don't want to be on medications or antidepressants or anxiolytics, and they would love to have a natural alternative. And their psychiatrists are actually working with them to help them with this. So there's a lot of research about CBD being helpful for withdrawal off of benzodiazepines and that sort of thing. So for somebody who's looking for that, I mean, would you recommend that they, of course they're going to talk to their provider about this, but I mean, as far as using the CBD in conjunction with the tapering off sort of dosage of these medications or just sort of waiting till it's out of the system, I mean, I think there's some benefit to the aiding with the withdrawal symptoms as well of this. But
we've got so much to learn about this. And I guess I'll start by that answer by saying we have a test for, thyroid, and we have a test for vitamin D, and we've got a test for blood pressure. Right now, we don't have a test to know how well somebody's endocannabinoid system is functioning, if they have too much, if they have too little, or if they're just right. And if we had that, I think I'd be able to answer this question a lot more. Our suspect is that a lot of folks are deficient. Their endocannabinoid system is not working up to par. So they're more susceptible, again, because those receptors are littered everywhere, especially in the brain, in the limbic system, in the hypothalamus, in the hippocampus, in the basal ganglion. All of those things are responsible for our mood, our sleep, our cortisol levels, our emotions. If those receptors aren't functioning its best, those areas of our body physiologically can't function at their best. And so again, once that test comes out, hopefully it does soon, we'll be able to answer this better. But from my understanding, this adding in CBD is safe across, I shouldn't say safe across the board, but it is generally considered safe to use in conjunction with other medications. Now, as always, there are exceptions to the rule. You work with your provider, please, pretty please, especially if you're on a list of different medications. Things like blood pressure medications or statin medications are a big one to look into a little bit more. But when somebody's tapering off, especially if their body is adapted to using that medication, they have to heal from that medication, and they also have to adapt to the stress of the change. Where CBD really comes in and helps during that tapering process is it helps their body more efficiently adapt to the new changes by helping their body balance that fight or flight and that resting, digesting, and healing. And just that alone is amazing. And there really isn't too many things out there that's as powerful as CBD in doing just that.
That's awesome. And would you recommend gummies, or is there like a form of, I mean, some people vape it, they do liquid, or, I mean, is there like a superior form, I guess, of administration, or is it good to just start with a liquid?
I'm not a fan of gummies just because it's another opportunity for us to add in a lot of colorings and a lot of preservatives and a lot of sugar, which again is going to create its own inflammatory and stressful, issues. So all of our products in our as pure ingredients as we possibly are available. And I'm proud to say it and stand behind all of that stuff. So in our tinctures, we literally just use organic hemp extract, again, CBD, and organic hemp seed oil. That's the only two ingredients that are in our tinctures. So what's great about that, it's flexible where we can get it into the bloodstream by using it underneath the tongue. Or if somebody has aches and pains that's associated with whatever stress they're going through, they can spot treat with that tincture topically, and it's still going to get into their bloodstream. Other things to do, vaping is, as long as you're 100% confident that those ingredients are clean, the benefit to vaping is that it's going to get into the system faster. So, if you need something quick, vaping is there. I believe tinctures take somewhere between right around 40 minutes to 2 hours to get into the system, but it'll stay a little bit longer than the vape. When we do an edible, like a capsule or a gummy, it takes a little bit longer as well, longer than a tincture, but it also stays in the system a lot longer too. It just depends what that person's goals are and what they're after.
Okay, great. So we've covered so much anxiety to depression or to diabetes and insulin regulation and all kinds of stuff. So I think this is a great opportunity for our listeners to do some research on the website that you mentioned, have this discussion with their practitioners, and definitely check out your site as well and try to track your own heart rate variability. I think that would be something that it would be beneficial even if you are getting acupuncture or you're doing meditation. Or how cool would that be to actually see how your body is responding to all these things? And if you are in that fight or flight mode, then you are going to have some issues, I think, with either getting pregnant or also could be anxiety down the road or an inflammation and all kinds of things. So this is be kind of a nice little warning light, like you're checking your engine, It's really cool. So is there anything else you'd like to add for our listeners that you think would be helpful for them if they are going to be experimenting with CBD oil or anything like that?
Well, I think we said everything. CBD isn't the cure. Manage those expectations going in. If you are going to experiment with it, work with your provider and, just listen to your body going through that process. And, I love talking with you. I think you're awesome and I love what you're up to. And I hope that you continue to make a huge impact on everybody's life. And, this is a fun topic. We could have talked for a lot longer.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. It's something that I've been wanting to actually discuss on the show for a long time. So thank you for coming on. And to all of our listeners, I hope that's been really helpful for you. I know I've learned a whole lot this past hour. Feel free to comment on our Facebook page and also reach out to Dr. Cade for any questions you might have about CBD. All right. See you next time, guys. Thank you. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, you have to check out the PCOS Revolution Academy, where we go through all of these topics in an easy to follow, totally online, step-by-step process so you can stop giving PCOS the upper hand. Join me over at thepcosrevolution.com to find out more about how you can sign up and also get access to some very cool freebies I've created for you. I'd love to have you join me inside of the Academy for our monthly live Q&A session to get all of your PCOS questions answered personally. Thanks so much for listening and see you soon.